Anyone living in the galaxy of Warhammer 40K knows there are fears greater than death itself. The terror does not come from monstrous Xenos beyond the frontier, nor from pyromaniacal cultists. It is the endless, patient shadows lurking beneath the city's layers, the creeping silence in cathedrals, heresy, demon worship. But above all, those who hunt in the name of the Imperium, the Inquisition. You might catch the faint echo of boots scraping a stairwell at midnight, or feel a cold gaze upon you in a dust-choked square. In the Imperium, anyone can be watched. Priests, citizens, soldiers, no one is out of reach. The Inquisition is often described as the Emperor's sword, but in truth, they are the nightmare nobody dares to name, a hunting machine so refined and relentless, both public and secret. Judge and executioner, detective and shadow. Sometimes, a mere whisper or a single wrong gesture can destroy everything. Home, name, city under the sacred banner of purity. And in the night, our story begins. A weathered sailor, recently returned from the rim of the Imperium, cannot shake the haunted look in his comrades' eyes before they were taken. It began with disturbing dreams, visions of fire and blood, faceless figures in black robes, voices whispering in his skull. You never know when you become a target. Maybe a random accusation, a fleeting glitch in control data, or simply an icy stare in a crowded temple. Once they take notice, your entire existence changes forever. The feeling of being hunted infects even the calmest moments. You hear footsteps in the alley, watch your door crack open in the night, or suspect that your sinful thoughts are being read. You live forever, cautious, avoiding the rituals of purity, leaving no trace of psychic residue. As the saying goes, better to suspect everyone than to fall once. Even sleep offers no escape, for the Inquisition hunts not only in reality, but in dreams and memories as well, manipulating minds, planting seeds of dread. Some victims claim they recognized their persecutor only after they died. Why is the Inquisition so terrifying? Simple, absolute power. They are above all law, all custom, even the decrees of the ecclesia. When an inquisitor judges you a heretic, not even planetary governors dare intervene. Life, death, torture, and confiscation all rest in a single scowl. Survivors of inquisitorial raids speak of the endless auto-savants, clicking records. Justicars with eyes clear as glass, psychops holding emotion detectors and lie-spy devices. Sometimes the interrogations are brutal, sometimes they drag out for months. Still the hunted collapses, body and soul. But the true horror rests deeper. Often, you have no idea what your crime is. Or in truth, innocence is itself suspicious. In this age, purity is an impossible dream. Ever since the war in the warp began, everyone is a seed of heresy waiting to bloom. And so the chase begins, a lethal game between you and those who never stop. You flee, change names, vanish from city to city, learn to be silent, to pretend innocence, but always know one misstep, and you will be torn from reality, thrown into the dungeons of the Inquisition. Somewhere, a bell tolls in the endless night. Perhaps it marks a public execution. Maybe it signals that someone vanished without trace, devoured by the machinery of defenders of faith. But this is only the beginning of the true horror of being hunted by the Inquisition. The Inquisition does not hunt you with a siren's call or a public accusation. Their hunt begins with whispers, subtle, insidious. A single black-robed figure drifting through the hive city's endless crowds. Or a paper left in the inbox of an Arbit's precinct. Maybe there's a flicker of your name on the data slates, passed hand to hand by scribes. An unsmiling agent asking casual questions. The first sign that something is wrong is rarely a raid. It starts with paranoia, that prickling tingle between your shoulder blades when you sense eyes on you, but can see no one watching. The Inquisition moves in absolute secrecy. Unlike the garish fanatics of the ecclesiarchy or the thundering boots of the Astra Militarum, Inquisitors wear many masks: spears, priest, merchant, advisor, sanitation worker, anywhere. Sometimes they announce themselves with a flash of their rosette, the sacred badge that grants them authority over all. Other times, you will not even realize their scrutiny until the net tightens and you cannot breathe. Rumors spread like a disease among the populace. Someone disappeared during the night gone, erased, not even a whisper left behind. Shopkeepers clutch icons to their chests. Parents hush their children. Inquisitorial agents recruit from everywhere. The pained confessions of a zealot. Data mined from a scribe. An offhand comment overheard in a marketplace and recorded by hidden auto-servos. Suspicion festers. No one is beyond their gaze. Your life grows smaller. You remove all identifying marks, burn old letters, cut all ties to questionable acquaintances. You avoid the old cafe where you used to relax, knowing that old friends might be the very ones to betray you, convinced of your guilt by the zeal of self-preservation. You discover your flat has been searched, yet nothing is missing. It is the implication, not the objects, that chills your blood. Inquisition records are terrifying in their depth. They catalogue every deviation, every ill-timed question you ever asked, every strange purchase, every trance of anxiety seen by a careful witness. You realize you have no idea what the interrogators know, what they do not know, and, most terrifying, what they have invented. To the Inquisition, even a hint or rumor can be evidence of fever dream, a slip of the tongue enough to condemn. And what of the witch hunters, those with the authority to burn worlds, order the deaths of millions to preserve the purity of mankind? Sometimes you wonder who precisely sins more, the terrified little men hiding doubts, or the Inquisitors themselves, whose loyalty is to survival above all. Their enemies are demons and heretics, but their reach ensnares the innocent, the unlucky, and those too curious for the Imperium's taste. Inquisitorial agents do not torture with iron and chains straight away. At first, the pressure is psychological. Letters intercepted, questions asked of your employers, your children watched at school. Suddenly, the Adepta Arbites is interested in an overdue tax. The ecclesiarchy drops by to check the faithfulness of your morning prayers, and your supervisor investigates long-forgotten references in your resume. The walls begin to close, the routine details of your life weaponized. What do? You attempt to disappear into another hab block, onto an off-world transport, adopting false names and forged documents. But the Inquisition has eyes everywhere. Adeptus Mechanicus search programs, off-world informants, bounty prowlers paid in heretical artifacts. Even the stars themselves seem to watch for your mistake. Those who survive longest become inhuman. They learn to never speak their own names, never leave a pattern, sleep light, kill without hesitation when cornered. Yet even the best eventually fall betrayed by an old friend desperate to save their family, or a child who mentions your name to the wrong priest, or by the simple mistake of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. You thought the fear would dull in time. It only grows sharper, a cold steel pressed against the nerves. Every dockmaster, every cogboy, Every child in the crowd could be a watcher for the Inquisition. Sometimes you see their black-clad silhouettes in the mist, watching, silent, immovable. And if you look back, truly look, you understand they are already waiting in your mind in dreams, memories, nightmares, which may already be evidence enough. This is the black seal of the Inquisition, not the threat of death, but the insidious, consuming terror that your fall will mean not just your own end, but destruction for those you love. Generations erased, questions never answered, justice never found. In a universe ruled by suspicion, you are already guilty. Once you have felt the gaze of the Inquisition, paranoia becomes your only companion. Paranoia is, perhaps, even a sign of survival. You scrutinize every face on blistered, packed transit trains. Watch the way strangers linger near information kiosks, twitch at the soft static of a Vox speaker clicking on overhead. Gone are the days when anything in your life was routine, not your route to the ration depot, not the buying of rations, not even how you greet your own kin at the threshold of your home. You start to develop rituals, things never taught or spoken, but handed down through generations of the hunted methods of ensuring you are never too predictable. Never walk the same path 2 days in a row. Never speak to the same vendor by name twice. Never sit with your back to a doorway. Never fail to check for the faint scratch of sealant on the hinges that might mean someone else has entered. Your world becomes a maze, always shifting, a living puzzle of fear. And yet, fear is no guarantee of safety. One day you find your mailbox half open. On your sleep slab, a speck of dust that never should be in your tidy room. You start spending hours watching your building's entrance, noting every unfamiliar boot, grim helmet visors, the way children with ecclesiarchy pins pass by and casually look at you with too much knowledge. Are they just children or someone's eyes? For the hunted, trust becomes impossible. You share nothing about your past or even your favorite song, for any such detail could be twisted into evidence. You begin to question those closest to you, your partner's sudden, late return, your mother's furtive glances, the trembling in your old friend's hand as he passes a simple note. The Inquisition does not always appear first. Often it is the ordinary people you once counted as allies who, under pressure or terror or the lure of reward, become informants. At times, you dare to remember what peace felt like. A birthday in a crowded dormitory, laughter echoing among the bunks. The clean taste of fresh fruit snatched from a passing trader. These moments are like relics from another life. Now, even sleep is edged with dread. You replay every conversation, every glance, every exchanged word. You wake at the slightest sound, the vibration of a distant reactor. A cry in the night, the soft scrape of a window lifted just the barest inch. Sometimes you wonder if the Inquisition is even watching you at all, or if your terror is hollow, a defensive howl against the uncaring void. But deep inside, you know, the moment you relax will be the moment the hammer falls. Surveillance in the Imperium is as much a poison as the bullet. The eyes of the machine's server skulls, with eternally rolling lenses, unseen cameras stitched into wall moldings. The constant drone of Auspex drones passing above sometimes feel even more gruesome than the human betrayer. Their vision is tireless, unblinking. Their memory is flawless and eternal. There are places in the city where rumor says Inquisition data witches can see you from 100 miles away. 1,000 seconds in the past rendering flight nearly hopeless. Your actions become fragmented, divided between calculated caution and the desperate need to keep hope alive. Many hunted souls scribble journals, coded or burned after a single reading, simply to relieve their own panic. Some join wanderers' gangs on the move, others burrow into the depths beneath the city, living among refuse and the lost. There is a moment inevitable, universal to all hunted where you consider surrender, not because you are guilty, but because the terrible uncertainty, the tension, is its own form of torture. You imagine the release of simply stepping from the shadows, hands raised, begging for deliverance. But you remember stories, inquisitorial prisons where the screaming never stops, where prisoners are forgotten amid endless paperwork and bureaucracy, their suffering lasting years, sometimes a fate worse than death. So you run and run, and the shadow behind you, the one you cannot see, never stops either. For in the Imperium of Man, being hunted is not a chapter, but a way of life, a labyrinth where the walls move, the path folds, and one wrong turn means you are lost forever. In the darkness of the Hive City, the hunted soon discovered that hiding is not about vanishing completely, but about becoming part of the scenery so ordinary, so unnoticed, that no inquisitorial gaze lingers long. Survival for one pursued by the Inquisition demands mastery of disguise, adaptation, the constant reinvention of self. Every day starts with transformation. The hunted swap coats and hats with strangers, hack debtor registers, to erase records, sometimes even alter biometric markers if they can afford a back-a-leaky region. Names are chosen for a day, then discarded. You become adept at mimicking the tone and slang of whatever neighborhood you pass through. Travel documents and prayer tokens change, forged by desperate underdwellers who sell hope for a handful of credits. There are places where the hunted install themselves, forgotten machine rooms, derelict shrines, the ruins of closed manufactorums. These places are toxic, damp, infested, but safest from eyes of the Imperium. Some find work in nocturnal enclaves, serving at all-night cafes, hauling refuse, running errands for disgraced tech priests. As long as you blend in, you might evade the net, at least for a time. Communication, once a sign of connection, is now dangerous. Whispered messages in code, innocent notes concealed as mundane transaction receipts. Even these can be risky. Stories circulate about vox channels tapped by Ordo Hereticus agents, scribes arrested and flayed to reveal a single secret. You learn to trust only those who have lost as much as youth, are broken, the vanished, fugitives marked by years of flight. The hunted often become anonymous legends, whispered among the desperate. The shadow of Sector 5, Queen of Beggars, the ghost in the guts. Each a tale of survival, resistance, and sometimes vengeance. Young runaways adopt these names, hoping fear brings protection. But most are dust, forgotten in the endless grind of the city's machinery. Sometimes running means physical flight, jumping onto packed transit cars at high speed, blending into crowds at public executions, risking corridors patrolled by clockwork guards. You learn the hidden paths of his tunnels, condemned buildings rumored to be haunted, bridges connected by webs of scrap and fear. Navigation is as much instinct as memory. A single misjudged turn can lead into an Arbeits checkpoint, or worse, an inquisitorial ambush. The hunted develop skills, silent step, blanking their minds against psychic scrutiny, reading faces for betrayal and hope. They learn which prayers matter and which prayers to avoid. Sometimes they shapeshift, psychologically redefining beliefs to blend with whatever cult or crowd they encounter. Yet even the best cannot elude forever. All paths run out, all shadows end. You can disguise your voice, cloak your body, and erase your history, but the Inquisition has more than eyes. They have informants in every clan, every trade, every hidden enclave. And when your luck runs dry, even fellow fugitives will trade your name for a moment of mercy. The cost of constant vanishing is high. The hunted become ghosts in mind as well as body. They forget their own laughter, their true reflections, their loved ones' faces. Their only companions are fear and the memories of what they left behind. Every answer is logged by dozens of scribes and auto-servitors, each cross-referenced against the records they have, and those you do not even know exist. Sometimes the questions are absurd. What was your father's mother's favorite hymn? What blessing did your children receive on St. Drusus Day? The goal is to find the gaps, the slips, the inconsistencies that betray guilt or, worse, incomplete loyalty. Psychic scans follow depending on your rank or suspected crime. A sanctioned psyker is brought in, hollow-eyed and trembling from constant war with the warp. Their arts are as much horror as magic, probing your dreams for forbidden memories, unlocking the echoes of fear or hate that might link you to demonic influence. Some victims describe the sensation as drowning with your own mind as ballast. Others believe their souls are peeled open like fruit, left raw for days afterwards. If compliance is not forthcoming, the regimen grows harsher. Physical torment is introduced, a practice so ancient that some techniques have existed since the fabled days of old Earth. Others devised anew on 1,000 grim battlefields. You are not only hurt, you are taught to believe pain is proof of your guilt, and confession is your only escape. Isolation compounds the agony. You are left alone for hours, sometimes days, without sound, without light, or bombarded by choirs blasting hymns at frequencies designed to shatter reason. The walls themselves seem to whisper accusations. You begin to hallucinate. Faces of accusers from your past, remembered failures, secret sins you long ago buried. The Inquisition knows that the mind will often break itself if merely given enough time and encouragement. Sometimes your faith is weaponized against you. Priests come to comfort you, offering forgiveness in exchange for confession, promising that only loyalty to the Emperor can end your ordeal. You learn that even forgiveness can be a trap, a last net to catch your soul before it falls. There are moments when resistance flares. Prisoners sing canticles, carve heretical verses into the walls, make bargains with the shadows. But the fortress is implacable. Resistance usually leads only to escalation. If you are too stubborn, you may discover yourself in cells reserved for the truly damned, living hosts for demonic entities, exiled psychers whose screams have become a permanent fixture of the archives. You may be forced to witness horrors beyond comprehension. Yet for all this, the point is not always truth. The Inquisition desires something purer and more chilling: certainty. They wish to know what makes you tick, what fractures your will, what secrets linger beneath the surface that could one day blossom into dangerous heresy. The tortured, the broken, the purified, all feed the great machine of loyalty, each becoming a part of its self-perpetuating legend. But not everyone breaks. Some, whether by accident or strength, survive the process damaged, perhaps, but alive. These survivors are marked in every way, physically, emotionally, spiritually. Some return to the world as hollow shells, living with the fear that inquisitorial eyes still track their every movement, waiting for a relapse or a stray word. Others become fanatics, forever eager to denounce heresy wherever they find it. believing that loyalty might shield them from the horror they once endured. Meanwhile, those on the outside watch, terrified and fascinated. Tales of the Inquisition's interrogations spread far and wide, distorted, magnified, always daunting. The very mention of inquisitorial justice is enough to suppress dissent, coerce obedience, and keep the populace clinging to faith even as they fear for themselves. And therein lies the true, horrifying reality of being hunted. It is not just you who suffers. The pain, the suspicion, the constant threat, these ripple outward, seeping into every corner of the Imperium until even the most loyal are stained by the possibility of guilt. You are not only a victim, but a weapon, reshaping the world around you with terror, doubt, and the desperate hope that tomorrow the Inquisition's gaze will pass you by. For many who fall into the Inquisition's grasp, the ordeal transcends the purely physical. It becomes a psychic war, a battle for the soul, waged not merely with lash and chain, but with eldritch power, mental manipulation, and terror from beyond the stars. The first assault is subtle. Interrogators and their sanctioned psychers do not always announce their power. Sometimes your dreams begin to shift. Memories grow cloudy at the edges, faces you once loved seeming alien, voices in your sleep hissing secrets and threats. Some prisoners believe these are symptoms of madness, but others know the signs of a psychic probe searching, not just for knowledge, but for allegiance. At the heart of the psychic war is suspicion, not only of your words and actions, but of your mind and spirit. Inquisitors understand that true heresy is often a corruption of the soul, lurking beneath the surface, hidden even from conscious thought. Thus, sanctioned psychers, breed both revered and feared, are tasked with peeling back layers of memory, emotion, and intention. Imagine yourself in a chamber thick with incense and sanctified relics. The air trembles subtly. You see the faint shimmer where reality meets the unnatural. Here, the psyker sits, cloaked in wards and bound with psychic chains, so that their own affinity for the warp does not overwhelm or contaminate the proceedings. Their eyes are glazed silver, and their voice holds an echo like a chorus. The interrogation begins with simple questions, but soon shifts. You feel pressure inside your head, a sensation like static, the brush of icy wind on the inner walls of your skull. The psyker speaks directly to your mind. Who guides your faith? Whose voice do you hear when you pray? What secrets fester in your heart when alone? You do your best to resist, focusing your thoughts, reciting prayers, imagining blank white walls. But resistance itself can be interpreted as guilt. If your mind is too blank, too shielded, you are accused of training in psychic arts, of hiding shame. If your memories flow too freely, the Inquisition catalogues every stray detail for later cross-examination. The interrogators seek patterns, connections to forbidden cults, dreams of Xenos, stray visions of demons. No stray thought is innocent. Every image is suspect. Some prisoners are forced to undergo psychic scrubs. In these procedures, machines tune to the frequencies of the warp flood your consciousness with overwhelming sensory input, fragmenting your sense of time, identity, and self. Reality unravels. You lose track of language, meaning, hope. For some, the damage is permanent. They emerge from the procedure as shattered husks, unable to speak or recognize their own face. For others, wounds slowly heal, but with scars, nightmares, voices, compulsions, new fears. A few rare souls possess resistance either by training, fortune, or dark blessing. Some have had their memories prepared by Alyssika friends, hidden behind mental mazes or cloaking seals. These tricks by time confuse the interrogators, but rarely win freedom. The Inquisition employs psi-dogs, neural scanners, truth lemniscates, and arcane logic engines to find holes in your mental defenses. There are stories in the undercity of prisoners who made psychic bargains, offered secrets in exchange for mercy, bartered pieces of their own soul for one more day alive. Such stories are usually warnings, not hope. The Inquisition does not make deals. Instead, psychic torment is used to extract knowledge, destroy resistance, and, most crucially, test for contamination. Because contamination is never only a matter of heresy, it is a question of the warp itself, the touch of demonic entities, the shadow of forbidden gods. If a prisoner exhibits visible psychic corruption, unnatural resilience, or forbidden powers, the process escalates. Specialized inquisitors arrive, garbed in silver and flame. They perform exorcisms, psychic purges, spiritual surgeries to excise the darkness. More often than not, the patient does not survive. Witnesses to these procedures, guards, scribes, even interrogators, themselves suspect. The touch of the warp is contagious, a metaphysical plague that cannot be cured with antibiotics or prayers. Sometimes entire cell blocks are quarantined and purged after a single psychic breach. Fear of contagion multiplies the terror, fueling the Inquisition's authority and encouraging informants. Outside the cell, stories of these psychic battles filter through the shadows. Children whisper of mind thieves and soul cutters. Adults offer prayers that their minds remain untouched. For many, the psychic interrogation is worse than physical torture. Pain may end, but corruption lingers forever, passed on through generations, infecting the very heart of the Imperium. For the hunted, psychic attack is doubly cruel, destroying not just the body, but the foundation of self. Loyalty, faith, even happiness become indistinguishable from evidence of guilt. The warp does not care for innocence. The Inquisition cannot afford to care. Sometimes, in the deepest night, the victims of psychic war huddle together, exchanging stories and fragments of comfort. They recall times before terror, before suspicion, before the warp was a wound in reality. Most know better than to hope for escape, but a few dream of vengeance, a day when inquisitors will suffer as they have suffered. In the grim darkness of the far future, being hunted by the Inquisition is not merely a test of endurance. It is a test of spirit, mind, and imagination, a battle for meaning when every story in your head can be twisted, weaponized, or erased. You learn, too late, that in the Imperium, the shadow with the deepest claws is not a stormtrooper's bolter, but the delicate, insidious touch of a mind that is no longer your own. While the inner torment of the hunted is unspeakable, what sets the Warhammer 40K universe apart is how the Inquisition's web reaches far beyond the cell. For to be hunted is to infect everything around you: family, friends, city, and even planet. For many citizens, knowledge of the Inquisition is less about specifics and more about legend. Shadowy stories swapped over ration lines, warnings whispered in manufacturing halls, mothers telling their children ghost tales of silent figures who take away the bad ones. Few believe these stories fully until the signs appear in their own neighborhoods. The lights flicker late at night. Certain neighbors vanish. Guards stand unusually stern at district gates. And then panic spreads as surely as any plague. When a target's presence is suspected, entire communities turn upon themselves. The rituals of ordinary life work, prayer, and celebration grow brittle, as though the air itself is acid. People eye their friends with new suspicion. How did you get those extra ration tickets? Why were you on level 8 when the banned pamphlets appeared? Trust is the first casualty. For those fleeing inquisitorial scrutiny, the world becomes a maze of glances and secrets, every alleyway a potential dead end. Economies feel the strain. An accused traitor or heretic is bad for business. Guilds, unions, and trading houses hastily cancel contracts or cut ties with families on inquisitional lists. Markets collapse in panic. Credit flows like blood. Insurance adjusters triple their rates. Crew hawkers and vendors keep their heads down, praying not to be swept into a mass arrest. On some worlds, the mere rumor of an inquisitorial investigation can push an entire sector into riots. And what of planetary authority? Governors, mayors, and local arbites walk a tightrope pole. Power is conditional upon the Inquisition's approval. While the Inquisition rarely rules directly, it always looms. The threat of exterminatus, the order to utterly destroy a world in the name of purity, hovers at the edge of every political debate. A threat so great that even the mightiest leaders bow their heads. This dynamic reshapes society in its image. Informers rise in power, rewarded for their loyalty, for their ability to invent plausible accusations. Churches and faith congregations fracture under mutual accusations of blasphemy and suspicion of sorcery. The desperate turn to witch hunters or illegal psychers for protection. Law becomes a matter of rumor. Justice is an illusion. The Inquisition harnesses this fear. Sometimes it encourages it, planting rumors, leaking false lists, sending black armored troopers to parade through slum streets at midnight. Sometimes its agents pose as ordinary citizens, or even as rebels, spreading dissent to flush out the bold. The hunted learn to distinguish inquisitorial soldiers from local zealots, only by their methods and, sometimes, not at all. Of course, the Inquisition's focus on contamination and heresy means that science, innovation, and culture all suffer. Better to be safe than sorry is not just a proverb, it's a law. Caution suffocates invention. Songs about stars, stories of hope or rebellion, all are muted, rewritten, or banned. Guilds of adepts compete to prove their orthodoxy, burning outdated records, denouncing rival experimentalists, silencing voices of change. For to be accused is to disappear, and memory itself can become evidence of guilt. Black markets flourish, ironically, with inquisitorial repression. Forged identity chips, fake confession tokens, smuggled relics promising immunity, or sold at brutal prices. Those who create or deal in these goods live on the razor's edge, never sure when business will become betrayal. Some criminal gangs make common cause with hunted exiles, building networks of clandestine support until their own usefulness is at an end. But the greatest tragedy is personal. The family of the hunted suffer most. They may be separated, interrogated, conscripted into labor camps for their own protection, or used as bait to lure the fugitive out. Many execute desperate plans, bribing guards, going into hiding, or turning upon the hunted themselves to save what little they have left. The agony of never knowing whether your child is alive, whether your partner has turned informer, whether your mother's tears are for you or for the life she's about to lose. These are torments the Inquisition never needs to manufacture. They are a natural product of its relentless gaze. For some, a twisted pride arises from surviving inquisitorial scrutiny. Whole districts assemble secret societies dedicated to sheltering the hunted, trading signs and passwords beneath the noses of their oppressors. Some even go so far as to nurture a mythos where the Inquisition itself is a beast of legend, doomed to fail in the end. Small gestures, passing a ration slip in the street, sheltering a stranger for a night, helping children flee a raid become acts of heroism. Still, the truth is grim. Trust is a risk. Compassion is a cost. In the end, the vast engine of the Imperium is remade in the image of the Inquisition, paranoid, suspicious, dangerous. The hunted may run, families may hide, economies may adapt, but no one is truly safe so long as the threat of accusation shadows every word and gesture. Even the hunted, forced into new names and faces, never truly escape. For the Inquisition is not only a force of lot, is the poison that seeps into every relationship, every network, every hope for connection. And this is why, in the heart of the Imperium, the most horrifying reality is not just being hunted. It is knowing that, at any moment, everyone around you might decide that survival means becoming the hunter themselves. The greatest horror of being hunted is not simply the risk of arrest, torture, or execution. It's the slow, inexorable dissolution of self, the unraveling of everything you once believed, cherished, or called your own. In the grim darkness of Warhammer 40K, identity is not a treasure, but a liability. To survive the Inquisition is to strip away layer after layer until only the raw, trembling core remains. The process begins subtly. You let go of your name. You burn old identification codes, delete holopics from your data slate, deny knowledge of your own relatives if pressed. What was once a source of pride, a family crest, a badge from the manufacturer, the dialect of your home planet become marks for targeting, clues for inquisitorial analysts to exploit. You learn to mimic accents, invent plausible backstories, and recite prayers just enough to satisfy ecclesiarchy inspectors, but never enough to invite notice. But falsehood is corrosive. Sometimes, even you forget what is real and what is a mask. Did I once worship the Emperor at sunrise, or is that just a cover? Are these memories of my mother genuine, or fakes implanted to fool the next psychic scan? You live and relive every moment, doubting even your own thoughts' painful safety at the cost of meaning. All relationships suffer. Your children know you only by your new face and false name, forced into quiet obedience lest their whispers betray the family. Lovers communicate in coded gestures, sharing warmth but never history. Even casual acquaintances fear connections. You watch as neighbors avert their gaze, friends cross the street, partners distance themselves emotionally, terrified that associating with you jeopardizes their own security. For the hunted passions die. Hobbies, dreams, ambitions. The music you once played is now a risk. The old novels, the foods you craved, even the way you walk can draw attention. What remains are practical skills, quick hands, silent movement, an encyclopedic knowledge of safe houses and escape routes, divorcing you from any previous sense of self-worth or hope. Identity is also lost in ritual. Prayer that was once sincere becomes rote, repeated for safety, not faith. You recite the litanies demanded by the Inquisition, memorizing responses to standard questions even as the words ring hollow. For some, this loss of faith is itself a mortal wound. For others, only practical survival matters. The greatest agony arises in moments of quiet. Alone in a dim alcove, wrapped in soiled robes, You might try to reconstruct memories in an old birthday scene, the laughter of a childhood friend, but the details blur. Was this truly your experience, or have you constructed it to meet the expectations of your inquisitorial interrogators? Is there any part of you that remains untouched by suspicion, secrecy, or self-defense? Even your dreams betray you. You wake gasping, convinced for a moment that your mind is intact, only to realize that the lines between past and present, fiction and truth, have become vapor. You are haunted not only by inquisitorial torment, but by your own inability to remember who you were before the net tightened. Some turn to desperate measures. They tattoo cryptic symbols beneath their skin to remind themselves of lost allegiances. They pass on secret names and numbers through coded signals, hoping that if all else fails, someone somewhere might remember their true selves. Still, hope dims as days lengthen into years of flight. A handful rebel by constructing new identities, becoming heroes in whispers, daring agents for rebel enclaves, even mythic saints among fugitives who spread tales of escape and defiance. But these new identities are fragile, always at risk if the Inquisition discovers their roots. To be truly free would require not only survival, but the recovery of honest self, an impossible dream for most. The loss of identity eventually touches everything. You hesitate to speak, fearing that old phrases give you away. You avoid eye contact even with the mirror. You teach your children not to remember the past, lest it becomes a weapon against them. And in the end, you learn one unforgivable truth. In the Imperium, survival means becoming a phantom, a shadow alive but without a name, a heart, or a future. Some who escape the Inquisition never truly recover. Even on peaceful worlds, they recoil at sudden sounds, hesitate in crowds, distrust all authorities. Their laughter seems forced, their eyes haunted. They inhabit the fringes, mourn ghosts not only of friends lost, but of selves erased. The core identities that were sacrificed to endure the hunt. The Imperium, for its part, does not mourn the loss. It prizes order and obedience above truth, loyalty above identity, survival above hope. The Inquisition's work is praised as necessary and holy, each lost soul a small price for the purity of mankind. Suppression becomes virtue, memory becomes risk, and individuality becomes a crime. But in the darkest nights, on the edges of worlds untouched by inquisitorial law, there are those who remember. They gather in hidden circles, speak names once forbidden, pass stories from one trembling hand to the next. In their secrecy, identity is reclaimed sometimes for a moment, sometimes for a lifetime. These rebels know that being hunted may erase faces and names, but it cannot quite stamp out hope. For hope is the one part of the self that even the Inquisition fears, and so the hunted write secret messages, hide new legends, and dream of a day when all the world will know their true names again. The horror of being hunted by the Inquisition is a story well told in whispers, rumors, and tales of survivors. But behind every pursuit, every midnight raid, every ruined life, stand the agents of the Inquisition themselves. To truly grasp the choking, all-consuming terror of the hunt, one must also understand the minds tasked with unleashing it. Inquisitorial agent, those who serve the Ordos, Hereticus, Xenos, and Malleus are not simple zealots or robotic enforcers. They are human, and it is precisely this humanity, twisted by duty, faith, and necessity, that makes them both so effective and so tragic. Training to serve under an inquisitor is a brutal ordeal, psychic screening, endless scrutiny, the annihilation of nearly all privacy. Every secret of your past is exposed, dissected by master psychers and logic engines. Only the most resilient are allowed to proceed, and even then, only after years of factional violence, backroom intrigue, and impossible loyalty tests. Some are chosen young, noticed for their cold logic, or even their early betrayals. Others are selected from the ranks of Adeptus, Arbites, or recovered after surviving horrors of the warp that shattered lesser souls. For the successful trainee, the Inquisition becomes family and faith. Loyalty to the Emperor and to the mission is drilled into the bones, more important than love, desire, or even life itself. The reality, though, is a suffocating weight. Agents watch their steps with the same paranoia as their prey. To question an inquisitor is heresy. To doubt is to risk investigation. Even the smallest mistake, a missed clue, a moment of hesitation can blacken a record forever. No one is ever truly safe, for the Inquisition feeds on vigilance and the readiness to sacrifice even treasured allies. Missions are painstaking and relentless. The agent's days are filled with data analyses, spent deciphering intercepted communiques, reviewing planet-wide logs of movement and speech, factoring rumors and patterns detected by informant networks. It is a constant seesaw between boredom and pure, pulse-pounding terror, one day lost in paperwork, the next in the heart of a firefight, or standing before a psychic anomaly that could devour a soul whole. When the alarm is raised, when the target is to be apprehended or destroyed, preparation is everything. Teams are assembled, each member briefed and surveilled for loyalty. Acolytes and servitors are dispatched to secure alleys, establish cover stories, and silence all witnesses. The chosen agent may be required to disguise themselves, to infiltrate a community for weeks or months, earning the trust of people whose lives can be ended by a single word. Snatches of warmth, a borrowed meal, a moment of laughter, soured by the knowledge that at any moment the mission may demand betrayal. Executions, raids, and interrogations are among the most harrowing duties. Some agents manage by embracing the callousness required. They see their targets not as people, but as symptoms, nodes in a vast infection that must be cured. The best agents, though, are painfully aware of the cost. Burning a traitor means burning their friends, their memories, their hopes for rehabilitation. It is not a mark of strength, but an acutely felt wound, a scar added to the collection that must never be shown. Many agents turn to ritual daily prayers, litanies for protection, confessions in empty chapels. A favored method of coping is the keeping of shadow journals, coded, secret logs where agents pour out doubts and nightmares under layers of encryption, knowing full well they could be incriminating if discovered. Others numb themselves with chems, data slates filled with old stories, or painful optimism that what they do is necessary and holy. The psychic burden is immense. Witnessing and sometimes executing psychic interrogations takes its toll. Agents see the innocent destroyed, the traumatized reduced to shells, and the guilty left screaming or laughing with madness. Every operation is a reminder that humanity in the Imperium is a fragile, disposable thing. Worst of all is the knowledge that history will not remember the cost, only the purity achieved. An agent who falters will be abandoned, marked for their own purge, their friends quickly forgetting their existence. The cycle of suspicion is self-renewing. To fail is to disappear. To succeed is to become further entangled. Children born to agents are often raised by the Ordos, taught early that love and family must be second to vigilance and duty. Why do they continue? For some, faith is unshakable. The Emperor demands sacrifice. The alternative is damnation for billions. Others serve because it is the only path left. Some hope desperately to change the system from within, clinging to fleeting victories and the rescue of innocence as proof that they have not become monsters themselves, and yet most ultimately accept that they are both knife and wound. They survive by burying their questions deep, by wholly investing themselves in the role of hunter. But in the quiet hours of the night, when the prayers fall silent and the rations are cold, they ask themselves, is my horror at my own hands greater than the fear I put in others? For the hunted, the Inquisition is a nightmare. For the hunter, it is waking, Matnassar, labyrinth without escape, where even victory leaves behind only echoes of guilt, ashes of hope, and the certainty that the true cost may never be known. For the hunted, the dream of escape never really dies. It is kindled by rumor and desperation, sharpened through endless cycles of fear and flight. In the shadows of the hive cities and the slums of dying worlds, you hear stories whispered about those who have slipped past the Inquisition's net and found sanctuary somewhere far beyond its reach. Truth, however, is a rare commodity. More often than not, the hope of escape is a cruel mirage. To flee the notice of the Inquisition is to wage war against everything that keeps the Imperium together. Every level of bureaucracy, every data watch, every informant is an obstacle. Even simple things a ticket off-world, forged papers, a trusted guide can turn out to be clever traps. The hunted learn to distrust luck itself, for any boon in the Imperium may have strings attached, and kindness may hide lethal intent. The journey to freedom always seems to begin in chaos, a riot, a sudden fire, a breakdown of Vox networks, a rare moment when fate is too busy elsewhere to keep its eyes on you. These moments are seized not because of planning, but because opportunity is all that remains. You run, sometimes with little more than the clothes on your back, leaping into passageways that smell of oil and old sweat, following flickering lamps or the hasty gestures of strangers who may or may not be true allies. Money and barter become your weapons. Everything has a price, but the coin of the hunted is information. You trade names, addresses, passwords, and codes scrawled on stolen parchment or whispered in transit lines. Some currency is dark, a promise that you will betray another fugitive, a map to a cache of forbidden relics, the willingness to surrender loyalty for breathing room. Networks of refuge are always in flux. The hunted depend on mysterious cells, underground groups, rogue tech priests, rebel enclaves. Their rules are brutal. Never reveal more than is necessary. Always be ready to leave everything behind. Sacrifice anyone if it means survival. Even in these shadows, you are forced to account for spies within the ranks. The Inquisition is skilled in infiltration, in tempting desperate people with redemption or reward. The logistics of escape are daunting. Off-world travel requires identity papers, medical scans, faith certifications. You might bribe a clerk, sneak into transport ships disguised as a laborer, risk the savage anger of a captain whose patience for runaways is measured in lashes rather than sympathy. Sometimes you attempt the impossible, jumping freighters mid-dock, clinging to hulls, sneaking through vent tunnels thick with toxic air. Some believe in hope or madness, that there are sectors where the Inquisition cannot reach, worlds hidden in the warp, domains ruled by outlaw lords, or the desperate fragments of lost civilizations. The very existence of these places is rumor, little more than a bomb for terror. Occasionally, a lucky few find themselves among old imperial ruins, in communities so isolated that even the Inquisition's reach is attenuated. Most of these refuges are harsh, riddled with danger, sometimes worse than the fate you fled, but anonymity is its own comfort. But as you move farther from the Imperium's bright centers, survival grows more precarious. Law breaks down. Dangers multiply. Xenos raiders stalk the outer colonies. Rogue Mechanicus unleash mad machines. Hunger and disease are constant companions. Compromise becomes coinmost. Who flee must abandon ideals, relationships, even basic decency. It is rare to meet the noble fugitive. The world of escape is built on backstabbing, suspicion, and bitter necessity. Some, in time, build new lives. They take new names, root themselves among the dispossessed, transform into traders or mercenaries, seeking stability at any price. But peace is never permanent. Eyes linger. Informants are everywhere. The terror of inquisitorial pursuit transforms into the broader terror of survival beyond civilization. A life ruled by primal instincts rather than law. Occasionally, the Inquisition's reach is absolute. They dispatch kill teams, sanction bounty hunters, or even threaten planetary obliteration for especially valuable targets. These stories are weapons themselves, reminders that even in the furthest corners, safety is an illusion. For some, the dream of escape curdles into something else, resolved to fight back. Rebel enclaves accept acolytes, desperate not only for refuge but revenge. The hunted become the hunters, plotting sabotage, building new networks, risking everything for a chance at retribution. These movements, though, most are crushed, their members fed to inquisitorial interrogators or scattered to the wind. And yet, even in this endless cycle, the hope for escape never wholly dies. It mutates, sometimes into faith, sometimes into cunning. Within every fugitive's heart, there remains a vestige, belief that somewhere out there, beyond the reach of suspicion, beyond the grasping claws of the Inquisition, there might be a small taste of peace, a life beyond the shadow. In the final accounting, hope is itself a form of resistance. The hunted survive by dreaming, by fighting for the smallest sliver of safety, by refusing to surrender all the pieces of their identity. Escape may never be realized, but the endless drive for freedom ensures that the machinery of oppression is never fully complete. For no matter how powerful the Inquisition, no matter how deep its reach or how vast its hunger, it can never fully erase the capacity for hope, a weapon as old as humanity, passed from trembling hand to trembling hand in the darkest corners of the galaxy. The terror of being hunted by the Inquisition often focuses on the prey, but it is the collateral damage, the ruined lives, shattered communities, the psychic wounds echoing through generations, that truly defines the institution's legacy. In a universe barely holding back the tides of chaos, every inquisitorial hunt is a storm that leaves 1,000 victims writhing in its wake. When the Inquisition targets an individual or even an entire community, the effects ripple outward at once. Neighborhoods become ghostly, houses abandoned, markets shuttered, schools emptied. Productivity collapses as citizens are either pressed into endless interrogations or simply disappear, with no warning and no evidence left behind. Those left behind exist in a kind of permanent twilight, lives on hold, families unsure whether to mourn or to dread a knock at the door. Children suffer acutely. When parents vanish, the young are left in the care of frightened relatives or sent to state orphanages. where trust is discouraged and every friendship may be a trap. Children learn early to keep their secrets sometimes too well. Inquisitorial raids often traumatize all who witness them. Sleepless nights, night terrors, the stunted capacity to hope. Some children, orphaned and lost, fall into criminal gangs or, searching for meaning, become informers for pocket change or a scrap of food. Religious organizations, meant as pillars of stability, are thrown into chaos. Pastors and confessors are desperate to demonstrate loyalty, occasionally denouncing former friends in preemptive acts of self-preservation. Public faith is performative, cautious. True faith, if it survives, is whispered at great risk. Generational feuds, once based on old debts or property, are replaced by new animosities, forged in the crucible of fear and betrayal. Social order, too, degrades. When trust evaporates, so do all the subtle bonds of mutual aid and simple kindness. Families build walls, sometimes literal, sometimes emotional, against neighbors, once beloved friends, even siblings. The skills once taught from parent to child are replaced by lessons in silence, code, and survival. Never speak to strangers. Never answer a question about your family. If you hear the boots, hide and do not cry. On a larger scale, whole sectors become less governable. Local leaders dread inquisitorial involvement. Some descend into ruthless autocracy to preempt suspicion. Others abdicate authority altogether. Lawful orders and records are often destroyed. Not preserved, no one wants a paper trail that could invite a visit. Imperial bureaucracy, always slow and inefficient, becomes sclerotic, choked on lost data and panicked rumors. The planetary economy inevitably sinks. Trade routes dry up as suspected heretic worlds are avoided by merchant guilds. The black market expands, but this only increases chaos and violence. Where inquisitorial hunts become frequent, the cost of living soars. Only the rich or the truly connected survive well. The rest must barter, steal, or perish. It is not unusual for entire hives to be half empty, their populations purged of both guilt and virtue. But the deepest wounds are spiritual. The message repeated by the Inquisition: purity at all costs. Guilt by association, suspicion is safety, infects the soul of a civilization. In such a climate, the old human virtues become liabilities. Courage, innovation, artistic expression, even the loving bonds of family and friendship is a risk. The safest life is one lived without passion or voice, hidden behind conformity and paranoia. Many break beneath the strain. Suicides, collapses into madness, mass disappearances, these are as common as victories over actual heresy or chaos. Some try to find solace in outlawed texts, in forbidden rituals, or in movements to flee the Imperium altogether. Others become zealots, turning their pain outwards, hungry for the feeling of control and safety that comes only from denouncing others. There are pockets of resilience, tiny, flickering enclaves where kinship and solidarity survive, often at the price of constant vigilance or instant flight. Among fugitives, a fierce bond can grow, a kind of family forged in the shared fear, the shared choice never to trust again. Some enclaves keep the old fires burning, relaying stories of beauty and hope, teaching and sometimes defying the Inquisition's edicts in quiet acts of rebellion. Still, these enclaves are fragile. Most are broken apart in the end, betrayed by their weakest member, or erased by the sheer machinery of imperial suspicion. The cycle renews, the damage deepens, and new generations learn to survive by closing themselves off. Even those who have never seen an Inquisitor know the rules by heart. Don't stand out. Don't make friends. Don't hope for too much. In a civilization built on the fear that everyone is the next victim, being human is an act of dangerous rebellion. A few visionaries, at great personal cost, attempt to heal these wounds. Secret teachers, wise elders, underground caretakers all struggle to preserve the spark of compassion and creativity in children. Occasionally, hope takes root anyway. A song hummed in secret, a helping hand given at great risk, a forbidden painting tacked to a crumbling bunker wall. These are acts of courage as real as any battle. But for the vast majority, the legacy of the Inquisition is a world reduced, a people fragmented, a future built upon layers of trauma and grief. The hunted are not only the ones who flee or who die in darkness. The hunted are all those made smaller, quieter, more afraid, so that the machinery of the Imperium might grind on pure, empty, and alone. And so, the galaxy keeps spinning, battered by tides of suspicion and pain. The Imperium proclaims victory with every corpse, every ruined family, every frightened child taught to trust no one. For the Inquisition, this is the cost of safety. For everyone else, it is the real, lasting horror, the echo of the hunt endlessly renewed in the hearts of the living. As the cycles of inquisitorial hunts grind on across the millennia, the hunted and their kin discover that survival alone is not enough. In the shadowed alleys and hidden sanctuaries, a new resistance begins to form, not one of open rebellion, but of memory, myth, and subtle defiance. Memory becomes a weapon against oppression. For many, stories are preserved not in public records, but in whispered conversations. Fragments scrawled on scraps, songs hummed behind bolted doors. It is dangerous work. Every shared memory risks discovery. But every act of remembering is an implicit rejection of the Inquisition's central conceit, that purity can only exist through forgetfulness and fear. Among children, fairy tales evolve to encode warning, hope, and the secret history of survival. They tell of heroes who outwit inquisitorial agents with clever tricks, of monsters who can be tamed only by humility and cunning, of lost worlds where the hunted can run free, even if only in dreams. Myths grow in complexity. Some hold seeds of rebellion, training the young in secret hand signals or coded phrases to communicate safely with allies. Resistance is sometimes practical. Rebel cells maintain clandestine libraries, often little more than a few battered data slates and heretical pamphlets. Carefully, knowledge is preserved. How to make medicines without official sanction, how to disable surveillances, how to escape Voxnet sweeps or manipulate gene scanners. These enclaves become havens not just of information, but of community, a place where whispers of old faith or new hope persist. Yet myth is equally vital. The stories of the hunted pass from city to city, world to world. Old rebels and prophets are given new names and new faces, and their legends inspire the desperate. Tales of near-mythical survivors, the whisperer of Lucy's hive, Saint Verity, the uncatchable black child of the border, pass through the galaxy in torrent and trickle. Their exploits inflated but never meaningless. To believe in possibility makes survival more bearable. To imagine hope is an act of courage. Occasionally, myth becomes action. Group rituals of solidarity, lighting candles for the lost, painting secret sigils on forgotten walls, sharing coded prayers grow into movements. And sometimes, among the hunted, leaders rise who dare more than just escape. They plot, sabotage, organize strikes, shield innocents, or carry forbidden messages to cells facing extermination. Small victories echo through their communities, reminders that the machinery of oppression is not as perfect as it claims. But resistance is perilous. Every act of memory, every ritual, every myth passed hand to hand carries risk. The Inquisition thrives on fracturing solidarity, infiltrating enclaves with informers and psychers who specialize in the erasure of memory itself. In the most brutal raids, libraries are burned, elders dragged away, children forced to recite state-monitored pledges, forbidden to speak of the past. Guilt is redefined as the act of remembering what has been lost. And yet even these losses are not total. Every secret word, every sly wink, every burst of laughter in the dark carries meaning beyond what official records can prove. The hunted learn the value of confusion. They use myth to mislead, memory to shield truths inside riddles, to protect the real from the prying mind of the Inquisition. Tell them what they want to hear, goes the code, but never everything. Over time, resistance changes both the hunter and the hunted. Inquisitors themselves become haunted by stories and dreams that slip through the cracks. Reminders that even the purest crusade cannot wholly conquer the hearts and minds of humanity. Agents whisper old songs in barracks, pass forbidden stories in code among trusted friends, sometimes carrying tiny fragments of rebellion into the heart of the very machine they serve. On rare occasions, myths kindle revolution. Whole hives rise up, united not by overt ideology but by shared memory, by never forgetting. These uprisings often fail, crushed by superior force and apathy, but the spark persists. Each new generation faces the Inquisition's blade with a deeper knowledge that even death cannot erase legacy. That memory endures underground, waiting for a new cycle, a new hope. And so, in the endless twilight of the Warhammer galaxy, myth and memory refuse to die. For every innocent lost to the machinery of fear, a story survives in dreams, in code, in half-heard lullabies, and the furtive rites of couriers and children. The Inquisition can burn worlds, shatter families, annihilate names, but it cannot kill the impulse to remember, to resist by imagining a world where purity means mercy and justice means connection. For the hunted, to survive is admirable, but to remember, to create myth, and to resist in whispers, if not in screams, is to reclaim humanity itself. In the cold expanse of the Warhammer 40K galaxy, the horror of being hunted by the Inquisition never truly ends. The hunt is not only the pursuit of individual guilt or heresy, but the perpetual maintenance of fear itself, tool more potent than any weapon, more enduring than the fleeting lives of millions. In this finale, the nightmare enters its eternal phase, looping through generations, systems, and the marrow of humanity. Imagine the dusk of another forgotten world, a hive city trembling in uneasy silence. The last echoes of a raid linger, armored boots retreating down steel stairways, a single child's sob cutting the darkness, neighbors peering through half-closed windows, debating whether to mourn, rebel, or forget. The Inquisition does not leave behind closure. It plants uncertainty and paranoia and lets them bloom. For those who survive physically, existence becomes a delicate balancing act. You move through your days weighed by invisible chains, never speaking too freely, never trusting too deeply, clinging to routine while watching for a new sign of inquisitorial attention. Some find tiny rituals that help, touching a hidden icon for luck, sharing cryptic goodbyes, retreating at every siren wail. Home is not a place, but a rhythm of evasion and vigilance. The psychological impact deepens. Nightmares become constant companions. Every dream is a replay of interrogations, raids, betrayals. Sleep offers no respite. Fear burrows into the subconscious, manifesting as jumpiness, suspicion, rage, or numbness. Families raise entire generations on rules of safety. Never ask questions. Never answer directly. Never show sorrow or joy where others might be watching. Community becomes a shadow of itself. Informants thrive while kindness wilts. Secret networks struggle to maintain solidarity, but every act of compassion might attract the wrong eyes. After a time, most embrace emotional austerity, living through withdrawal and guarded alliances. To feel deeply is a luxury. To love openly, almost impossible. Cultures transform under the shadow of the hunt. Art and music recede into silence. Innovation is risky, and tradition is bent into the safest forms. The stories told become shallow, emphasizing obedience and caution, but beneath the surface, the forbidden tales still circulate, coded drawings, secret rhymes, children's games that echo the old legends of survival and rebellion. Some attempt escape, physically or spiritually. Rebel cells spark uprisings, smugglers build risky passages across worlds. Desperate exiles seek eldritch sanctuaries outside imperial control. Most attempts are doomed. The machinery of imperial suspicion grinds all but the luckiest and most ruthless into dust. Still, the hope lingers. Before being hunted was not just a curse, but a summons to courage and cunning. Even those who survive broken and afraid carry this small ember inside. The Inquisition, for its part, recognizes the cycle. Its agents are schooled in patience, their victories measured in burned records, shattered alliances, broken hearts. The perfect hunt is one that never ends, the perpetual motion of suspicion, accusation, and submission. For every heretic exterminated, a dozen innocents are made docile by fear. On rare worlds, resistance breaks through. Generations unite to remember forbidden names, pass along wisdom and spirit, to teach that real purity is conscience, kindness, and hope. These small revolutions rarely last, but they persist in memory and, so, even when crushed, their seeds are carried by survivors to distant cities, to the next cycle of oppression, to the edge of the Imperium and beyond. And in this tangled, tragic maze, the hunter discover a profound truth. The horror is not only being pursued, but in the threat's ability to shape who you are, to fracture your relationships, your future, your memory itself. To be hunted is to be changed, remade according to the design of an empire built on dread. Yet, in the deepest places of the night, hope appears. As denial, but as resistance in the smallest ways. The kindness given, the myth remembered, the hand clasped in secret. The hunted may never be truly free, but in their struggle, they are paradoxically most vividly human. Pain becomes testimony. Survival becomes proof that the machinery of suspicion cannot fully conquer the spirit. In the final measure, being hunted by the Inquisition in Warhammer 40K is both a personal and cosmic tragedy. It is a story of every family, every world, every child who learns that to speak, dream, and love is dangerous. But it is also the story of endurance, of rebellion in small, shining acts, of memory surviving all violence. The endless night continues, and the cycle never truly closes. Yet each voice that remembers, each hand that resists, Each hope that endures, these are the true scars, and the only real victory.